take a couple of deep breaths. We're always going to have issues. And we're going to try to figure out how do we solve our problems. Some things are out of our control. Some things we don't know, right? When we ever talk about the future, we don't know what the future is going to be exactly. But we want to take precautions. We want to do what? Mitigate risk. Right, Daniel? That's our whole idea, is mitigating risk, right?
Absolutely.
We don't know, and that's what we'll discuss today in class as well. So I'm having everybody jump online. Do I have volunteers to moderate the chat today? Because I think that some of the things that we're talking about are crucial. Okay, Robert Kim, thank you so much. And Luke, great. And then you can even ask your questions, Luke, as we go along. One of the things, and please interrupt me as we go along. And hopefully Jasper and Amanda and Emilio and Arnav and Camden will get their cameras up and running. Okay. And Eduardo and Sasha, I just see background, but I'm sure they're going to come online. So one of the things, Daniel, is I noticed a lot of things we may even want to, if you can, is download the review sheet, Daniel. And as we're going through some concepts here, we can maybe add some additional concepts, like was Moore's Law added? I don't even know.
I can check and make sure.
Yeah, some things, were on the slides, but maybe they haven't been added. These were kind of like a group one, and then people say, oh, it wasn't on the list, because some of these terms won't, like cache memory, and
I don't see Moore's Law yet.
yeah, so put Moore's Law. VPN, I think, is on there, right? VPN, adware, is adware there?
Let's see. VPN's not on there.
Okay, VPN, those are important things. Some of these got missed, so if people were just looking at that, and cache memory.
Adware is not on there.
Yeah. Spyware. I don't know if spyware was on there. We'll see. Okay, so my last line there on people here. Okay, so Shane, we got you. Sasha, Jasper, Amanda, Emilio,
I don't see spyware either.
So, as I was going through, I saw a lot of terms. I don't know how they skipped us. You know what I mean? Even though we were.
I'll upload at the end of class once we've covered everything.
Yeah, once I do the review, if the other things happen, Okay. So, Amanda and Dominique and Emilio and Camden have not there. Okay, so let's look at it. I think we're ready to begin. Put any of your questions in the chat, and we'll have Robert and Luke just unmic themselves and ask me as we go through it. Okay, so everybody's heard that there's the hurricane is on its way, and the university has not made any decision, but I've heard from a number of you. I've heard from a number of you. Maybe you're not as worried, but your parents are already setting this up. That who knows what's going to happen. And also it's a weird time because we also have fall break coming in. So people are saying, let me move early. Let me get my cherished children back at home or somewhere safe to do this. So what I've decided is I'm going to delay our exam. I just think for a number of cautions, last minute, the gusts of wind, the floods and so forth. And since we are meeting in person, I want everybody to be safe and here, and a number of things that we have to do adjustments. So I reserved, Daniel, and we'll have to do this. I reserved the exam for next Wednesday. So we can put a note there. due to my precautions. You may have, I'm not sure what the university is doing. I waited kind of to the last minute, but I just think it's not enough risk. And there's so many students that their parents already made them reservations and things like that, that I think for due caution here, I'm making the exam on the 16th. Is that the correct date? I believe so, right? On the
Yes.
16th. We have the lab as well available to us. So Daniel will be able to tell our tech support to meet us on the 16th rather than on the 9th. And we can use the 9th. Those of you that won't be traveling, you can use it as study day. I'm not sure, we can put notes here if people are still having, Luke's still having some issues on that optimization or something like that. We possibly can make an extension, for those parts if need be. Otherwise, you can go through it. And I'm going to do a review today. So there should be clear for you the review. I know some of you are saying this way you can do all the review even before you leave for spring break, and then just come for spring break. Or come after fall break. I think about it spring break, but after the fall break, and everything will be the same. Any questions about that? If you have some issues, personal issues, stay with me afterwards, and I will go over with you. But and we'll probably have to make an announcement too, Daniel, that has all these things have to be changed, and also on the review sheet as well. Everything will be there. I think it's just basically who knows what's going to happen on this. Hopefully we'll be safe here, and our thoughts and our wishes for all those people, especially on that west coast of Florida, that they will be safe too and take precautions. So I don't want to set that in any motion. Okay, everybody clear with me on that? So anyone that, I've gotten a number of emails today, what can I do? So I thought everybody come to class and we can do that. Any questions on that? Okay, so Luke, are we okay with that? And Robert, Kim, do I need anything that I need to issue? We can have that.
I have a question.
Sure.
So are we still meeting on Wednesday?
I'm going to cancel the class.
Okay.
So this way, people are flying. You can use it as a study day. You can meet with your group, Clark. If you want to study, I'll show you different ways to study with AI today. So we'll set that up. Okay, I think that'll just be the easiest way to do it. So you can put that in. Due to the hurricane, officially classes canceled on Wednesday, October 9th, and we'll meet for the exam. Okay, Clark? So that way, what I suggest you do, Clark, just to get out of the way and you want to enjoy your fall break, is use that Wednesday to study, and you can even study with your group and others and test each other. I'll show you what to do. Any other things that I need to address? Thank you, Clark. That's important to make clear to everyone. Okay? Okay, so let me share my screen. Let's see if you can see it. You can see my screen, right? Let me just put this up too. And you can see that we're here. Let me take this. This is us, right? I can see that Dalton here, the beautiful blue sky. And then let me take that URL and put it into my notes there. That we can do that. Okay, so let's go to our class. We talked about assignment instructions, and and then we had these back testing, index and optimization trading algorithm, PowerPoints and documents. You'll see here is review exam 1. And then at the end of the class, Daniel, you can change the date, Daniel, of this one, and you can update the latest one here, and you can change the date of Wednesday to the 16th, and also make an announcement on that. That's perfect. So we have those announcements here. And we have a number, if you looked at it, we had a number of ways in which you'll do it inside here. You'll also change, and you'll have a number of characteristics. One of the things that I wanted to do, besides these terms, what I think you should do is also go over the slides. And when you go over the slide, this is for information security, you can think about the difference, for instance, between human mistakes and social engineering. You should know what social engineering is and provide examples of each one. You should be able to do that, deliberate a task. And then we talk about something of risk mitigation strategies, 3 risks, right? And identified the 3 major resources. You can see about what's happening in here. So you know that there's some that are what they call unintentional threats. A lot of times those are users that are not paying attention, click on links, they're not doing, and then there's deliberate threats. And what are organizations doing to protect those, or what are information security controls? We can skip the ways. And so, for instance, we have threat exposure and vulnerabilities, right? What are the differences between those? What do we talk about information security? So what I suggest you do, which I've done before, is there's a number of AI conversational bots that you can try out, and also be, in this case, Clark, it almost can be your study partner. So what I really like is Call Annie. Call Annie has a large language model, and she's changed it a bit. They're trying to get revenue, so she's changed it a bit. But part of it, if you sign up, you can, and you give it via your email or your phone. I like to give my email instead. You can give different emails. There's different, of course, in any of these Gen AIs, there's different avatars. I use Call Annie, but that's okay. Let's see if she comes up. Hi, Annie. This is Dr. Rush. I'm doing a review for information technology with my class, and I'd like you to be a member and help us review. Are you all set for that?
Hey, Dr. Rush. I'm totally ready to dive into IT with you. What topics are we covering today?
Well,
I'm excited to help out.
Good. We're going to cover security, and I want to cover in security, I want to cover the differences between threats and vulnerabilities and exposure. Can you tell us about that and give us an example?
Sure thing. Vulnerabilities are weaknesses in a system like unpatched software. For example, if a company hasn't updated its firewall, that's a vulnerability. Exposures are situations where a vulnerability could be exploited. Imagine that same unpatched firewall is connected to the internet. That's an exposure. So, if a hacker finds that vulnerability and exploits it, that's where the threat comes into play. Does that help clarify things?
Yes, it helps clarify a lot of things. So we want to know, what is an exposure? What's the difference between a threat, exposure, and vulnerability?
Great question. Threat. This is the potential for harm. Think of it like a storm warning, something that could cause damage. Vulnerability. This is a weakness that could be exploited. It's like having a hole in your roof. Exposure. This is the state of being open to harm. If that hole in the roof is exposed to the storm, that's your exposure. So, in a nutshell, a threat is the danger, a vulnerability is the weakness, and exposure is the situation where that weakness can be exploited. Does that make sense?
Yes, and we're also going to talk about social engineering. What is social engineering? Can you give me an example?
Absolutely. Social engineering is when someone manipulates people into giving up confidential information. It's like tricking someone into opening the door for a stranger. For example, a scammer might call pretending to be from tech support asking for your password to fix your computer. They're using social engineering to exploit trust. It's all about psychology rather than technical hacking. Does that help?
Yes, that's fantastic. So one of the things we talk about is denial of service attack versus a distributed denial of service attack. What is it and what's the difference?
Great topic. A denial of service DOS attack is when a single source overwhelms a system, like flooding a website with traffic to make it crash. A distributed denial of service DOS attack is similar, but it comes from multiple sources, like a swarm of bees attacking. This makes it harder to stop because the traffic is coming from many different places. So the key difference is the number of sources, 1 vs. Manny, does that clear it up?
Yes, and how does a botnet work with the distributed denial of service?
A botnet is a network of compromised computers controlled by a hacker. In a DOS attack, the hacker uses the botnet to send massive amounts of traffic to a target. Each bot sends requests, making it look like a huge wave of traffic is crashing down on the server. This overwhelms the target, causing it to slow down or crash. It's like having an army of tiny ants swarming a picnic. Does that make sense?
Yes, that was great. Thank you, Annie. We'll use you again sometime.
You're very welcome, Dr. Rush. I had a blast helping out.
Great.
Anytime you need me, just let me know.
We will.
Good luck with your class.
Thanks. And then what's nice here under my calls, you can then see what I like in this case, Clark, is then I can even have the written format. What do you think about that, Clark?
I think it's helpful.
Yeah, so these are ways in which you can study too. Call Annie or other ones. You, of course, there's I like the ChatGPT. Now the newer versions has it. Gemini Live that actually have in Copilot that are the conversational one. Of course, you can do it via text as well, but I like to use it and then I get the text as I go along. So I just wanted to show you that that's a way in which you can go about doing it, and then you can basically see and make sure. In this case, Daniel, I think I have denial of service attack, distributed service attack, right?
Yeah, they're both in.
Yeah, and the Trojan horse, the backdoor, the logic bombs, these basically are all attacks by a programmer. The programmer puts this malicious code that you're not aware of that can do some kind of damage. And then as well as alien software that I don't know, this is on the air key, you can look at that, as well as adware when it's part of pop-ups on the screen, spyware, a keylogger. In this case, Robert Kim, a keylogger is what? You got any idea? That basically what has happened is there's two kinds, but those keyloggers, if I use like a public machine, Robert Kim, basically as I'm typing my username and password, there's software in the background that's grabbing it. Or they're grabbing my screen, they call it a screen scraper, right here under spyware, they're basically scraping what I have. And sometimes, you know, on the screen you have like asterisks when you put in your password. Robert Kim, have you ever seen that? So you say, oh, I'm safe. Nobody can spy from the background or take a picture, right? But what they do in screen scrapers is that those asterisks, they can go beyond that and look underneath. Basically, they're capturing your keystrokes rather than just those asterisks that are just basically a camouflage. So you can think about those that are doing it. And what's important is the area, what you need to think about is I have information resources that I need to protect. And think about it, Dalton, some information is more important than others. Some are more valuable than others. These PowerPoints are publicly available, Dalton. They're not, I don't really care if anyone picks those up and downloads it. I'd rather it's like basically the author has made that available, open to everyone. But your financial information via the university, Dalton, is what is crucial. So I'm going to be using more of my resources to protect that than this part. And what my contention, Daniel, is a lot of times organizations don't differentiate between the valuable data. You agree with me that sometimes,
Yeah.
for instance, that we are just going to that
More security.
server, virtual server, there's nothing there for anyone to worry about. We're using NinjaTrade or software even that is made available free to everyone.
Yep. They just prefer more security, more security.
Well, it's just easier that way.
Yeah.
It's not preferred, but it's easier to say, hey, this blanket, than trying to distinguish and then making exceptions. My key here is I think they should make exceptions, that I don't have to go and complain about every time. Why don't we get this option? And maybe later on they'll give us that option, but we have to take our time. So it's difficult. So this way, all across the board, we will do one thing. So you can think about a risk then is the probability that that threat will impact. That there is a probability, because everything is a risk, right? The idea that I decided we're going to postpone our exam is because I don't know what's going to happen with the weather. It could be it bypasses us completely and there's just some flooding. You understand, Daniel, that I don't know, but I want, in this case, on my risk and my analysis, I think everyone's lives is important to me. And the idea of parents making airline reservations or things like that, it becomes then that idea of ensuring that it'd be cost effective. That organization, then of risk mitigation, they're going to take concrete actions against this risk. And I'm even not waiting to the last minute to the university makes that decision. I have control of my class. I'm making that decision. So it depends on where it is and doing that. So this is the case. And these three ideas, Luke, you need to know. Risk mitigation, there's different ways. Mitigation means what, Luke? Is to basically reduce. What I want to do, I know it's not going to be 100%. Even if we cancel class, right? It doesn't mean that everybody's going to be safe. No, but I'm going to accept that risk. And I have, in this case, I'm going to limit the risk by implementing what we call controls. Put that in mind. I'm going to limit my risk by putting into some controls. Just like you saw, we have Duo, right? Because they're putting in some controls. They know that will limit the hackers coming into the system. And obviously it isn't 100%, but they figure using those Duo will limit them just picking up my password. That maybe I'm using that same password all the time. Now the key becomes, Robert Kim, is the idea of risk transference. Have you ever heard of that, Robert Kim?
No.
Okay, what do you think transference means? I'm transferring the risk to another party. Do you have a car, Robert?
No.
Okay, do your parents have a car?
Yeah.
And have you ever driven their car?
Yeah.
Okay, and what do they need in order to protect you in case if you get an accident? Are you going out of your pocket? Are you going to have to pay?
Insurance.
Insurance. So give me an example of risk transference. Is what? You just said it. Insurance.
Insurance.
You got it? That I'm transferring my risk to another party, and that's insurance, right?
Yeah.
That I may have a deductible, let's say of $500, but I won't have to pay $10,000 for the accident that I'm responsible for, right? Also, they're uninsured drivers, right? Have you ever heard of that? That they don't even have insurance, right? What's the likelihood that they'll crash into me? Pretty high versus those that don't, right? So my insurance will also cover uninsured drivers.
Mhm.
There's the same thing with security of information security. If the university gets hacked, they basically have some kind of basically steal some information, or they do what we call ransomware. They shut down the servers. Who will be then taking that fiduciary part is the university. Do you think they have cybersecurity insurance? What do you think, Robert?
Yeah,
Yes.
they do.
That's what they call risk transference. That means transferring the risk by others to compensate for what? The loss. And you can even think of it, makes sense to you, right? Your parents basically have to have insurance. So when you drive their car, you're insured as well. So if there is an accident, that's going to be. So this is the idea that risk acceptance would mean what, Clark? That if my PowerPoints get stolen, I'm going to do risk acceptance. I'll absorb any damage that occurs. Somebody breaks in and steals on Blackboard, steals all my PowerPoints. I'll take care of that risk, and I don't want any controls on it. Just like when you log into my Zoom, do I ask for a password, Clark?
No.
I figure if somebody wants to come into the class and listen, I'll take the risk. Because not even that, we go even onto YouTube, right? And we broadcast. I'm willing to, but it may be something else if we're discussing some highly personal information, or we're discussing, in this case, proprietary information that for patent. I may want not to accept that risk. I'll put a password in. So it's depending again, and risk limitation, I'm going to limit those controls based on limiting that threat. So you can think about it. Those, Sebastian, you're accounting major? Sebastian.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in this case here, information systems auditing, auditors are now having to go into even AI systems and others and basically put controls to what? Sebastian, minimize risk. So that's what I'm going to have in systems auditors. They basically do. And in this case, Sebastian, these are controls, and I use it in accounting all the time, right? That we have certain controls that what? That there won't be collusion, there won't be people stealing my data, there won't be my employees, other people coming outside, right, of my organization, taking care of my fiduciary interests. So I have different controls, and when I tell controls, those are ways in which I mitigate the risk. I put a control. You all do that. Robert Kim, when you drive your parents' car, what do they say when you park it? What do they say to do? Lock it, right?
Mhm.
You just
Yeah.
and you don't want to just leave it unlocked and say, hey, here I am, right? What are you doing? You're putting some kind of physical control. So that's the same thing with information systems. What I'm doing with information systems or security or my computers, right, is I have physical controls. So those physical controls are what? Lock the computer room if I have it, right? Those are physical. Put a guard in front of the lab. Put some locks. How do you get into that lab? we swipe our cards, right? Our badges to get in. Those are all physical controls. And access controls then are basically authentication and authorization. When do I use it to get into Blackboard? They don't want everyone to get into Blackboard or get into the university's network. Not only because they don't want maybe those people that haven't paid for the services, but also they don't want to have bad actors there. So they have access controls. And then you have communication controls that across the network, I put in some firewalls. One of the things that we can think about a lot of times, my data, if it's not encrypted, that's why I use the hypertext transfer protocol with the S for secure, that it encrypts my data, that when somebody grabs my data, by default, it's text data. What does it mean, Sebastian, text data? That somebody can read it without having to do any type of de-encryption. It's like I see right here, Sebastian Hernandez, I see that straight up. So if you were gonna send me your, and I was a website and I wanted you to, and I was Amazon, you wanted to buy something, right? Not only you have to put your name, you have to put your credit card, you have to put in that 3-digit security code, right? If that were plain text, somebody easily could get that access in and sell all your information. So you wanted to have some type of communication control that data is encrypted, that it's the least difficult for people to pick it up. Is it impossible? No. It's the amount of risk that they have. And then they have something called business continuity planning, that if, for instance, something occurs like a hurricane, and think you're on the West Coast of Florida, right? If my servers get crashed, my building even gets crashed, how can I continue with my business? I have to have some planning. And information systems auditing is that auditors, information systems auditors. So these are people in accounting, Sebastian, that specialize in digital security. And they'll go into a company and say, do you have all the controls available? And they'll come up with a report and say, this is where you're weak. You don't have physical controls well enough. You don't have access. Everybody can get into your computer. They don't need a password. You haven't encrypted your information. You have, you're taking credit card information from your customers and you're not encrypting it. That's information systems auditor, that from afar, they even can do it, go through the system, and then they even can play black hat, white hat. They even can try to penetrate your systems. So these are examples of physical controls, right, that we talked about, right? These are physical controls. Business continuity planning means I have to create a disaster recovery plan. And this is great. Sebastian, I have a hurricane coming. We have we have some offices in Tampa and Sarasota, and a disaster recovery plan. We have a plan that's called a hot site. When they go down, there's another site, and I don't want that site to probably be in Florida. Maybe I want it to be in the West Coast, or I want it to be in the Northeast, and it will be a site that's up and running immediately, that I don't miss a beat. A warm site means that I have a site, it's almost prepared, but it's going to take some time. And a cold site means, Sebastian, that we have a facility, but it's going to take us a while to be up and running. If for a chance they're down for more than a couple of days, they may be down for months. That's the difference between hot site, warm site, and cold site. And access controls, we talked about it. The authentication confirms the identity of the person requiring access. And I give certain people what? Authorization, which means what, Sebastian? I give them the right to be a student, a right to be a teaching assistant. I give them an ability just to read the information, to make changes to the information. You don't want everybody in the organization, if you're the auditor, to say, hey, everybody shouldn't be able to look at everybody's payroll, and they shouldn't be able to do what? Add, delete, change, right? That's authorization that I'm having. Authentication, something the user has, the user does. This was what our speaker from last time was saying, something the user knows. Firewalls for communication and encryption, we talked about it. This is how we do encryption. This is what we call virtual private networks. For the university, they say, hey, you know what? I don't want to go through the regular internet that is more vulnerable. I want to have what we call a virtual private network. And you're looking at that, Daniel, too, to see if that's on our list, right?
Yes,
On that.
I put it there.
Yeah, so we have the organization internet here. This is the cloud, the internet. This is my business partner that I do work with. So we're going to just have like a tunnel, that it will be more secure. We have that at the university for our research. Our patented research, we don't want everybody to be able to get access to. So we're able to have a virtual private network. It's still a network. I'm still going to be sending data and communicating, but it will be more secure. This is crime cases I don't need, and that's chapter 4. Questions? So I'm into that. Let me see what else I have here. Let's do this. I have, and it's the same thing for data. Let me just download the that we should be able to do with our data. I should have that here, right? Let me see on my download, so I have it. So let's open that up just to see what we have. And you can check if we have all of this, Daniel. I think we should do. We should have this data is going to be on the exam quite a bit, and it's also basically on our open-ended of that data, talking about a database approach, that I have a number of tables that I use. I'm going to be able to do big data. I need to know about the data warehouse and the data marts, knowledge management. I'm not going to test you on relational database operations. And we talk about, you need to know what data governance is, right? That if I have data governance is basically the policies, the procedures on the organization of data governance, basically what data comes into the system. So if we had the University of Miami, it would be, what data do I want to collect on the students, right? Who's in charge of it? When you change jobs, when you change addresses, who's going to be in charge of that? How do we keep it secure? Remember, we had the security director here, and he basically has what his job and what he's so what keeps him up at night is people are trying to get our data. And why? And maybe they're trying to get our health data to do fraudulent things. So the difficulties, you need to know what the difficulties of managing the data. One is that we get it so much, so it's exponential. We get it from multiple sources. And what is data rot? So the idea is I need to figure out what data rot is. And in this case, JC, what do you think data rot is? It's rotting. Do you think that's good? Like food? No. So what do you think it is? It's data, if this is the case, that's not valuable to us. The data that's old, the data may not be complete. So if I think about, I can't rely on it. So I need to think about the data. How do I know if it's secure? How do I know its quality? If we're going to think about trading, JC, right? And I'm going to back test my data. I'm going to look at it, how it is back in time. What's going to be important is that the data is correct. If I can't rely on it, all my forecasts are not going to be possible. Then government regulation. For the universities, there's certain government regulations that I have to abide by. If I'm in healthcare, I have the Health Information Privacy Act, Portable and Privacy Act, I have to relate to. If I'm in banking, I have to know my customer. I can't just take any customer. So it's the same thing in that governance, data governance. The key is that I have to have rules and regulations, multiple sources. I know it can come from different sites, just like our data did. You remember we had end of day data. I can get from X, basically my stock sentiments. So these are multiple sources. And in data governance, it's the idea I have master data that will tell me not my data per se, but how my data, what are the fields of my data? How to describe my data, like student ID, student grades, birth date, and how do I manage across the entire way? So the database approach starts with data. You need to know the data hierarchy. And the key here in data is that we want to minimize at least three things. The idea, JC, is what? I want to do data redundancy. I don't want your address to be in 50 different places, right? It's a waste of time. And also when you change addresses, I have to update that. So data redundancy then is that same data is restored multiple times. Data isolation is a problem too, because I could have some data about you, but I, as a professor, don't have access to it that I could possibly needing if I wanted to give you, let's say, a scholarship. And data inconsistency means that one place it's stored one way and another place it has a different data. What do I want to maximize? Since my data is all in one location, security becomes the issue, because then they can take all of my data. If I, for instance, I keep all my valuables in one room and they attack that one room, I've lost everything. I want to maximize my data integrity and my data independence. You talk about it. And this is what you need to do. The data starts at the smallest part with a bit. You need to know the definitions of this versus we have all of this, right, Daniel? Big
Yes.
byte field, data file, or database. And
Yeah,
we
that's
have
already in there.
maximize and minimize.
We also have record table, but
Good,
yeah.
perfect.
That's
And
like
the
data
record
file.
table, right? And that record and that record is within a table, right? Which
Yeah.
is a row.
Yes.
Right. And then the relational, here the key in the relationship is the primary key. You need to know the definition that it can distribute mine. I need to know then what's really important here is my primary key and my secondary key. But we have that, I think, right, Daniel? And then big data is what are the characteristics of my data? We looked at in our example on the class, we looked at big data, how to manage that big data, how to use it in different ways, how to define the big data. Here are definitions, but basically it's diverse, it's high volume, high velocity, comes in so fast. That's why it's so great with the stock market data, right? And these are basically, you can do machine generated social data that we need. We talk about that. I think these are good, putting big data to use. Data warehouses, we talked about that versus a data mart, the generic data warehouse environment. The data warehouse, it's a repository. What's the key? Historical data. It's organized by subject. And a data mart is a subset of a data warehouse. So if my data warehouse, the data mart could be a subset where I could do, if I think about marketing, it's almost one of my marketing campaigns. So I'm going to do it for strategic problems here. For one of my data marts could be a small version. So if my data warehouse was all my students from the past, those that graduated and even got jobs. Then in this case, the data mart would be which are the students that were most satisfied and succeeded in coming to, what were the characteristics? And we could look at certain characteristics of certain students, where they were from. And that data warehouse, we got to think about where the data is. And the key here is non-volatile. What does non-volatile mean? That it's not going to change, meaning that it's historical. And the time is going to vary, and I'm going to try to integrate it. And those that of you can know is that I can use like drill down to figure out the characteristics of online. And it basically, again, my data, even in my data warehouse, is data governance. What data am I going to be putting in? The exact same thing. And here was a diagram. Relational, we don't need to use. And let me just make sure here that one of the things that I can do here is, for instance, on hardware, it's the same way that if I looked at my hardware, we had talked about it before. So my hardware, we talked about it, strategic, my compute, we talked about this, right? JC, we know about the CPU primary, secondary. If I asked, in this case, Red, if I asked what is volatile, my primary storage or my secondary storage? What's going to be more temporary? It's going to be my primary, right? Versus my secondary. What are input and output devices? I need to think about hardware. What's the trend? Prices are reducing. I'm going to get more advances. We can think I get more for my money, basically, in hardware. And basically, you can think about it. With the advent of Gen AI, I have to manage. Then it enabled it with mobile devices, bring my own. Here is computer hierarchy. I don't need to do this. Input devices. Let me see what else is important here, right? The central processing unit, how the CPU works. I need to know what RAM is, random access memory, that it's volatile, right? That it goes fast. Any program I use, I'm going to be doing it in that case, right? My ALU, my arithmetic logic unit, will do arithmetic. We talked about this before. My primary going 2 ways, my secondary going 2 ways. I have also my memory, how my CPU works. Moore's law, you see this, Daniel? Yeah, Moore's law,
Yeah, I added that.
my Moore's law. Memory capacity, my primary storage, my secondary storage. The hierarchy, I need to know my hierarchy. Again, it's just like my data hierarchy and my bits and my bytes. Are these all in there? Register, memory, cache memory, random access, read only. Are they all in there? Daniel?
I'm checking. Yep,
Cache as well?
I just added cache
Okay.
earlier.
Okay. So I need in this case, and then you can even ask Annie and all the other ones to give us examples, right? The same idea here, that we can give instructions to the CPU, right? And we can think about it. What else? I think that's it. And then what am I missing? 2. Let me just go to 2 just to see if we're missing anything on software there. And this was on software. And on software, of course, we talked about operating systems. So you need to know the difference between, what's the difference between an operating system and application software. We've talked about that in class. The idea of open systems, open source software, that's there too, right?
Yes.
Daniel?
Yes.
Okay. Operating systems, I'm sure there. Personal applications, and that's it. And then the other part and in these cases is basically the ideas on these open-ended questions, what's going to be important. I'll be asking you some form of these open-ended questions, but I assure you, you will also have to show examples on what we did in class. So on the characteristics, you see that a backtesting and optimization in automating trading systems is not only discussing what backtesting is, what optimization is. Optimization is basically was a version of backtesting we did, and then show examples of what we did in our homework assignments. So for instance, in that optimization, as we're able then to look at for our trading strategy, we're able to look at a range of parameters and optimize to find what the best net profit, total net profit. So there may be even combinations of this. So it may be give examples of trading rules and strategies that we used for back testing along with the characteristics. So this question and this question may be combined. And I'd even have the Gen AI systems help me, go back and forth on that. It's almost as if I had, in this case, hi, Annie. This is Dr. Rush, and I'm here with my class, and we are trying to review about backtesting and optimization. Can you give us a clue about what is backtesting and what is optimization, and give us examples?
Absolutely. Backtesting is evaluating a strategy using historical data. For example, if you have a trading algorithm, you'd run it against past stock prices to see how it would have performed. Optimization is tweaking your strategy to improve performance. Let's say you find that your algorithm performs better with certain parameters, like adjusting the buy-sell thresholds. How does that sound?
It sounds,
Have any specific examples in mind?
yes,
Awesome. I hope that helped.
yes.
What's next on your agenda?
My next,
Anything exciting?
yes, exciting is tell me the difference between what is a strategy in NinjaTrader.
Great. In NinjaTrader, a strategy is a set of rules you create for trading. It tells the platform when to buy or sell based on specific conditions. The difference between a strategy and a simple trade is that a strategy automates the process, while a trade can be manual. Does that help clarify things?
Yes,
What kind of strategies are you exploring?
we're looking at
Awesome.
the simple moving average of 10 days versus 25 days. Can you tell me about it?
Sure. The 10-day simple moving average SMA gives you a short-term trend, while the 25 days SMA smooths out price action over a longer period. When the 10-day crosses above the 25-day, it can signal a potential buying opportunity. Conversely, if it crosses below, it might indicate a sell signal. Are you planning to use these in a specific strategy?
We did. We used it in NinjaTrader, the SMA 1025 crossover.
That's fantastic. The SMA 1025 crossover is a classic strategy. It's great for spotting trends. How did it perform for you in NinjaTrader? Any interesting insights?
It for the long trades, it did well for some of our stocks, but then we used optimization on that sample SMA crossover, and we then gave a range for the parameters. What do you think about that?
That sounds like a solid approach. By optimizing that SMA crossover with a range of parameters, You can discover the sweet spots for your specific stocks. It allows you to adapt to different market conditions. Did you find any surprising results during the optimization?
I'll have the students talk to you about it. Thanks. And then basically they limited, basically now they're trying, in this case, to limit the time you have with her, where it used to be unlimited, but that's okay. You can just revisit her again. So that's my review. Any questions? So Luke and Robert, do you guys have any questions for me? Or,
Nothing in the chat.
and what about you guys? Are you clear on what you need to do?
Yep.
Okay. Anything else, Daniel, that we need to tell the students?
I don't think so, no. I updated the documents and put it in there, so yeah, if you guys have downloaded the previous versions of the study guide, use the new one, and it's all updated.
Okay, and then did you change the date?
I did,
Perfect. And then
and I made an announcement.
and you
I think more classes are canceled. I think the school made a decision.
did they? What did they say?
Two people have told me. I'm looking for the source.
That they
He
told you
said
what?
everything is remote.
Everything.
From what
I'll
I
post it in the
understand,
chat.
Tuesday at 5 p.m. until Thursday or something, everything is remote, but I could be wrong. I gotta
Okay.
check that.
So
I'll
perfect.
send the link to it. I got the source.
Okay, perfect. So we don't even have to worry about it. But for us, we're always remote, but since it's the one time that we're meeting physically, that we'll cancel it. So they got the idea. So they had that same idea. They wanted to do what? In this case, Luke, is they wanted to do risk mitigation, right? That's exactly what they're doing. Why take the risk? Just cancel already. So it's Tuesday at 5 already. It's going online. Is that what it
Yeah,
says?
starting Tuesday at 5, things are gonna close.
Okay. Makes sense. Why bother? So it turned out perfect for us. So we'll do Wednesday. We'll use it as a study day. So I like it that way. As I told Clark before, I liked it that way, that you can basically study with others. You can study with your AI partners and go through those tests. And also in Wiley, so also what I would do is I go through the quizzes that you've taken before. Also in Blackboard, you can also take, let me just share for a second. It's great that you told me. So in Blackboard, let me just go to Blackboard. If I go to, you can go over these Wiley quizzes. I suggest you go over these through you can do it through your grade book, right, Daniel?
Yes.
Okay, through your grade book, you just click on your grade and then you'll be able to go through it. And the other part on the Wiley readings, for instance, let me just even go through in Wiley reading and Wiley resources, right? Under practice, you see that under Wiley resources and practice, you can pick out certain chapters and they give you also practice. So if I went through information security, right, you can go through these practice questions as well. So the
Professor?
threats to information security are, and then you can go through those as well. Questions?
Professor, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's just me, but when I try to go into Blackboard and look at my quiz answers to study them, I can't open my previous attempts. I can see the grade.
Okay, click on the grade.
I already clicked on it. It doesn't open the answers for me.
Can somebody see him? Can you, Daniel?
I'm gonna check, but mine's gonna be different from theirs.
Mine's gonna be
Maybe
different.
Aaron, if you could check yours.
Aaron, if you could check yours of how, this is important. Because again, I have a
Yeah, I'll
different,
check.
Yeah. And I mean, I have
I
a
checked
different
mine
view.
earlier and it was like I could see mine when I pressed on the grade.
Okay, you
Clark,
pressed on
is
the
there a
grid.
specific quiz that you're referring to, or just all of them?
So Amanda, did you do it?
Oh, never mind. I found it. Sorry.
Good.
No
What
worries.
did you do?
My grades
Why
are
didn't you
showing up.
tell everybody, Clark, share your experiences. What worked and what did you do first that didn't work and now that it works?
Well, when you said to look at your grades, I went to the tab that says my grades, and then I clicked on the actual quiz where I thought I would be able to see the answers, but I wasn't able to because it just shows your grade when you
Okay, so what
submitted it.
did you do?
And then once you click calculated grade, then it opens to your answers.
Okay. All right, everybody see that? Perfect. You corrected yourself. How great is that? Okay, perfect. Okay, so we're right on track with the university. What we did learn, right, Luke, is risk mitigation. We won't forget that one. If we see a question, we can write about it, right? So in this case, right, the university did the same thing. So it worked out for us all. Stay with me if you have questions. Otherwise, I'll see you. Make sure we're going to meet in the lab next Wednesday, the week after, right? We'll meet in the lab and we'll take the test. Come 10 minutes early so everybody gets, and make sure that you bring your laptop with you. Make sure that you have Respondus also downloaded on your laptop. We're going to be using the school's computer, but guess what, Clark? We know that we have to do backup and recovery, reduce our risk, that you all have your laptops with you, and we'll put that out as well. What else? Student ID, you need to do picture ID. What else, Daniel? They need to bring, remind me.
I don't know. Maybe if you want like a blank piece of paper and a pencil to write down some questions.
I would do, they don't need to do that. Your phones will be, you'll be able to choose whether you want to start. There'll be two parts. You log in and out on both parts with Respondus. So you will be able to choose, do I want to do the two open-ended questions first, or do I want to do the multiple choice? You finish that, you can't go back. You'll take out your phone again for your authorization and access right to be able to get into the test. There it matters. You'll be able to take it one time, not multiple times, and we'll do well. That's my game. And then after that, we'll start doing our projects for the rest of the semester, get into much more Gen AI. Anything else? Stay with me if you have questions. Otherwise, stay safe, stay sound, don't do silly stuff. And if you're flying anywhere, have a safe flight.
Are you
Okay?
taking attendance?
Oh. Forgot about that.
Did anyone leave? Oh, I hope not.
If they did, they left. Extra credit for bearing other minutes, right? With us. Because the class officially ends when? Is this the right?
4:50.
Yeah, so we're okay. Hold on, let me close this. Let me go to my fundamentals, HI. Let me go to attendance. And you put out an announcement, right? Did you send it? Right.
Yes, I did.
8443. Thank you, Clark, for reminding us. Perfect.
And everyone stay safe, you know, with the
Yeah,
hurricane,
safe,
all of that.
sane.
Take
Right.
the precautions you need to.
And don't drive through water that you can't see the bottom of. It probably does it flood in your neighborhood, Daniel?
Yes, it will.
I
but,
know. So
we'll
you're
see.
we'll see. Okay. But usually over there on that end of town.
Yeah, you have to be very cautious.
Yeah, very cautious. Again, 8443. So I think we're set. Everybody's set, and stay with me if you have extra questions. Okay, and then we'll shut down